Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be looking at a powder foundation, and this is one that went viral during the summer of 2021 on TikTok, which proceeded to follow its way here onto YouTube. And that is the L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation in a Powder. I have the shade 130 True Beige. Find out more about how I like to apply this foundation, how it's worn throughout the week, and who I think it's going to be best for. Stay tuned and let's jump right into this video. To prime kind of all over, I'm going to use my NYX. This is the Marsh Mellow primer. And with this primer, I like to use one pump and then really focus on the center of my face and spread it out. It gives the skin a smoothness while giving it a bit of hydration. It has a really lovely marshmallow smell. I don't know what it is with NYX or NYX, whichever you prefer to call it, between the marshmallow primer and the plump right back primer. They're both really good primers. Something else I've been doing this week to prime is I've been using the e.l.f. Hydrating Face Primer, and I'm taking maybe a quarter of a pump and then working that between my ring fingers and using that to prime my under eye area. I had been looking for something to give a little bit of extra hydration to my under eye area because compared to the rest of my face, my under eyes are prone to dryness, dehydration. They can have a little extra texture. I found by using something like this under my eyes, it's just really helped plump and smooth everything out. Really lovely. To prime my lips, I'm going to use my Too Faced Hangover RX Lip Balm. For my eyelids, I'm going to use my Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Eye Primer. I bought this when it launched and I'm over halfway through the tube. I still have no set opinions or review for this product. It's nice compared to something like my Hourglass eye primer I really love. I don't like this as much as I do the Hourglass. I think what I really like about the Hourglass is it has a little bit of that peachy tint to even out the tone of my lids. This one is very thin. This says it's an eyeshadow and concealer primer. If I try using it under my eyes just look really textured. Sometimes it can feel like this has a little bit of like a mintiness to it, where sometimes, not all the time, it can sting on the eyelids. So I'm going to finish this off, but once it's done, I won't be repurchasing this. Let's talk about the sunscreens and primers I've used this week under the foundation. First day, no primer. I used my Olay Regenerous Mineral SPF 30. This was nice. It gave a nice kind of hydrated look to the skin, or well under the powder foundation. It was a nice all around, and that's generally the experience I have using this sunscreen under foundations, whether I'm using a liquid or a powder. This is just a great all-arounder, so this is why I always like to use my day one testing base product without a primer because I know how well it works on its own. Day two, I wanted to try using a different sunscreen. I wanted something that has a little bit more luminosity, so I used eSpoir. This is the Water Splash Sunscreen SPF 50 plus with a PA of 4 plus chemical sunscreen. Since this is a Korean sunscreen, it uses some filters that are not approved here in North America. Really nice one. Gives a very luminous but not greasy finish to the skin, and it has a little bit of a green tint to help neutralize some of the redness. This with the foundation wore really well, a little bit more luminous than my Olay. Equally is nice. Really liked this combination. Next, I wanted to try doing what I do a lot when I'm not doing YouTube videos, and that is layering tinted sunscreens with powder foundation. I always used my Olay Mineral as my base. The first day I used my kind of tried and true mineral sunscreen, which is the Ulta MD UV Physical SPF 41. This is an all mineral physical sunscreen. Nice peachy tint that gives a nice kind of light evening to the skin to help neutralize redness. It gives a very kind of velvety finish to the skin. This with the Olay under the powder foundation wore really well. It did look a little bit heavier than it did on the previous 2 days, which sometimes that can happen when layering tinted product under a foundation. Not my favorite combination. Next day, I used my Olay again, and then this time I used my Color Science Sunforgettable Flex. This is an SPF 50 with a PA of 4 plus. This is also a mineral physical sunscreen, and it's in the shade Fair. This was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, this sunscreen might be replacing my beloved Ulta MD, but it's really, really good. This offers a little bit more coverage than the Ulta MD, but it just looks so smooth and so realistic on the skin. And what I love about this one, it's available in shades from fair to dark, so there's something for everyone. On the days that I use the two tinted sunscreens, I use the NYX Marshmallow base. Really nice one. It just helps smooth the appearance of everything out. Each day I've worn this, I've been able to get an easy 10 hours out of it with NYX primer. It just made things look a little bit fresher. The sunscreen I used yesterday and I'm using it again today is a newer one I'm testing. This is also a Korean sunscreen. This is the Cell Fusion C Laser Sunscreen 100 SPF 50 plus PA of 3 plus. This is a combination of chemical, mineral, physical sunscreen. Really nice one. This gives such a beautiful pore smoothing effect to the skin. It can feel a little dry on the skin. For me especially, I noticed that like between the brows and right on the front of my cheeks, this felt a little dry after about 2 hours of being on, but overall it wore really well and this makes the skin look like silk. It's so smoothing. Caveat with this one is if you're anyone over a light medium, this is going to leave a pretty distinct white cast. For me and my skin tone, I found it did kind of dissipate after about 20 minutes of applying it, but if you're darker, it's going to leave a white cast. And this does have a floral scent to it, however, it dissipates pretty quickly. Yesterday, to neutralize a little bit of that blue purpley tone that I had left over, which was very minor, on a scale of 1 to 5, I would say it was maybe a 0.5 to a 1 as far as the intensity of the white cast. To neutralize that, I used the Hard Candy Sheer Envy Collagen Primer. This has a warm, peachy tone to it, worked really, really well, and it wore nice. It gives the skin a little bit of hydration, but what I liked about this is it had enough pigment to it to counteract the white cast. Today I want to try something a little bit different. I want to add a little bit of brightness and color correction to the center point of my face. That way I don't need to use this much concealer. I may use a product I've been using a lot off camera and I'm absolutely loving. This is also from the brand eSpoir. This is the Water Splash Tone Up Cushion SPF 50 plus with a PA rating of 3 plus. Tone up products are really popular in Asian beauty. Tone up or brighten up the skin tone. I bought this product as kind of like an experiment to see what a tone up product would do on my skin, and honestly I'm pretty pale so I don't get a huge like brightening benefit from it, but it does help to even things out. I'm going to use this in select areas just to kind of even out my skin tone before I apply concealer and the powder foundation. This is your typical kind of cushion product, and on the inside it has this nice peachy tone with a little bit of a white swirled in. I like to start towards the center and I like to use this a little bit under my eyes. So anywhere I would like to highlight with a more traditional highlighting product or anywhere that I want to even out hyperpigmentation, I will use this product. This works really well for hyperpigmentation because most time hyperpigmentation, especially UV related hyperpigmentation, has more of a brownie tone, where this has more of a peachy tone to it. It's going to help kind of neutralize that. And similar for the under eyes tend to have more of a blue purple undertone to them, so this will help brighten up that area as well. With that, I just take my beauty sponge and press over. I always like to conceal under my powder foundation. It's just personal preference. You can conceal over. Sometimes I find it takes some trial and error and I normally don't want to risk something going wrong. So I normally just do my liquid or cream concealer followed by powder foundation. That way my application is just quick and easy. I've been trying out this one from L'Oreal. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear Concealer and I have shade 340 Fawn. It has a very oversized doe foot applicator, much like something like Tarte Shape Tape. I like to scrape off most of the product from the tip of the concealer wand, and then I'll only apply it in select areas. So I like to cover a little bit right in here. Found it's best if you work in one area and blend out and move on. Here is the concealer blended out on this half of my face. Looking side to side, it gives a nice bit of coverage. It does well for brightening. It layers well over the tone up cushion. My only complaint with this is you have to blend very, very quickly. You can't kind of apply all over the face and then go back and blend out like I normally would. With this concealer, it does dry down quite quickly, so you need to blend quickly. Overall, it's pretty nice. It's comparable to something like the e.l.f. Camo Concealer, which is one I prefer a little bit more, especially the hydrating variation. Another thing with this one is I find around the 8-hour mark, kind of right through here, can start looking quite textured. So something to be cognizant of. I'm gonna do the other side and I'll be right back. Alrighty. Now that the concealer is on, I am going to be applying the star of the show today, which is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear 24-Hour Foundation in a Powder. Now, I was worried when I picked this up that the shade I got was going to be too dark, which the shade I have is number 130 True Beige. And I don't know if I just don't have a heavy enough hand to really make the shade count, but for me, the shade is very, very workable. One of the things with this foundation that I found very interesting is I tried using the sponge because when this went viral on TikTok, everyone was using the sponge. Really don't like it. So then I tried the Real Techniques powder sponge, which I do like. It's a really, really nice one. I don't love applying powder foundations with it, but after I apply one, I like to use it to gently buff over the skin with no additional product. It just helps smooth out the look of powder foundations. Tried a few other of my regular powder foundation brushes, like the MAC 150S brush. I tried the Jane Iredale Handy brush, and then with those, I found the MAC brush didn't give me enough coverage. The Jane Iredale brush gave me too much coverage. So I decided to try out a different brush, and this I ended up using and loving the rephr number 24, which is one of their cheek brushes. A lot of people use it for blush, but this is a really nice, small, compact, kind of buffing cheek brush. With this brush, the key is getting a little bit of product, tapping it off, and then start by stamping where you want your coverage. Okay, now that I've stippled a layer all over the skin, I'm gonna pick up a little bit more of my brush, tap off any excess, and then I like to go through and buff and smooth everything in. Not sure what's going on, but for some reason my brush is shedding really badly, and that's so odd because a few days ago I recorded my rephr brand review and I was talking about how much I love this brush and how it hasn't shed. So this foundation powder is quite matte, so I like to take a slightly damp beauty sponge and then press over. Here is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear powder on one half of my face and just concealer and primer on the other half. As we can kind of see from here to here, this has more of a kind of traditional powdery look to the skin. It's quite matte. It can look a little heavy. You can finesse it, which I will walk you through once I get the other half of my face on how to make it look less powdery. It's not my favorite looking foundation for the first, I would say, about 2 hours. After 2 hours, my natural oils come through, warms up, it looks really beautiful. Okay, this side is on and I don't know what is going on. It's starting to worry me a bit, but this is shedding a lot. Trying to see if anything will kind of slide out, but oh, you probably won't be able to see that, but there goes one. What is going on with this? This brush hasn't shed in like the, what, 6 months I've had it? That's concerning. I just talked about how much I love this, but that's odd. So anyway, to address the powderiness of this foundation, make it look a little bit more lifelike, a little bit quicker, one of the only things that I really love to really make a powder foundation look like it really melds with the skin is a very, very healthy dose of MAC Fix Plus. MAC Fix Plus is a glycerin-based finishing spray, and this is going to help draw in moisture from the ambient environment because of the glycerin being such a good humectant. Give yourself a very liberal spritz with Fix Plus. Another one that's really good, a little bit more affordable, is the Pixi Hydrating Milky Mist. Okay, you should look like you just came inside from a tropical rainstorm and now you're gonna take your beauty sponge and press over. It's interesting because when I left MAC and I wasn't wearing foundation as much as I was when I worked for MAC, and I wasn't wearing powder foundation as much as I was when I worked for MAC, I was like, fascinating. Why is my Fix Plus lasting me so much longer? When I worked for MAC, I would go through one, sometimes a bottle and a half of Fix Plus a month. We had our employee discount, which our employee discount was 60%, which made MAC in general quite affordable. So I would go through this like it was water because it was quite reasonably priced. And now that I don't work for MAC, I don't have a discount, and I don't wear powder foundation as much as I used to, I find it lasts a lot longer. But even here off the bat, it just makes it look a little bit more lifelike. So I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup off camera, and I will be right back to share with you the rest of my experience with this foundation and my thoughts on it. I might be in the mood for spring, but spring is not here yet in Toronto. Here is the rest of the makeup, and here is how this L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Powder Foundation looks after having on for about 45 minutes. I'm experiencing the same thing that I kind of have all week. I can make it wear really well. I can make it last all day. I can make it look a little bit smoother depending on the products I used under it. But an ongoing issue I have with it is from about a little bit more than conversational distance, it looks really nice. But if you're in conversational distance right through here, the skin looks very textured. It's almost like, feels like there's pigment sitting in places more so than it is on others. On the chin, it tends to break up a little bit. And sometimes that can happen with powder foundations especially. A lot of times it takes trial and error with your application. It's just sometimes foundations in general, not just powder foundations, can be a little iffy to wear. And that's not just exclusive to drugstore affordable products. That can go for high-end products too. There's just sometimes foundations are a little tricky to work with, and not every foundation, no matter how much it's loved, is going to work for everyone. Even though this was a viral sensation last summer on TikTok, a lot of people loved it, it's not my favorite. It's one that I bought last summer when it came out, and I struggled with it. I put it in my drawer, forgot about it, and then when I was looking for powder foundations to review, it's like, let's give this powder foundation an honest try and see who it can work for. That being said, let me grab my notes and we will take a look at what the details are on this powder foundation. Okay, so here in Canada, the L'Oreal Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation and Powder retails for $19.99, 9 grams of product, which breaks down to about $2.22 per gram, and it's available in 16 shades. 16 shades is pretty decent for a powder foundation. Very few brands make a very wide, inclusive range of shades and powder foundations. One of the best ones that comes to mind is going to be someone like MAC and their Studio Fix powders. I believe now there's 43 shades in Studio Fix powder. Don't quote me on that. I could be very, very off. Powder foundations normally have quite a scarce range of skin tones, but powders compared to liquids, you can have a little bit more flexibility because they can either be built up or be sheared down. If you shear them down, you will have more flexibility within the shades. If you build them up, then the undertone, the shade match becomes a lot more intensity, because then the more opacity that you have within your facial product, the more difference you are going to find between the face and the neck. I feel like this powder foundation will do best for someone who has more combination to oily skin, and for someone who likes more of a light to light medium finish. I feel like when you try to build this over a medium finish, it can look a little heavy. For me, I feel like right out here where I have fine lines and crow's feet, about 10 hours, I can start looking a little textured. 10 hours is a long time into an everyday wear. Now days are getting longer and our makeup needs to last longer. Here, Canada and the US, we're moving into the warmer seasons where our makeup needs to hold up through some heat and humidity. And while this one does look better as exposed to oils and moisture, it still takes a little while to warm up. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to put a foundation on in the morning knowing that I'm gonna have to commute to work or go to a morning meeting with my foundation looking subpar just because it's going to look better later in the day. I want something that's going to look good from the start to the finish. That's why when it comes to powder foundations, I prefer things like MAC Studio Fix powder, the Laura Geller Baked Balance and Brighten, or my Bare Minerals Original or Matte Finish. So if you're more on the oily side, you like a light coverage, this might work for you. If you're someone who is more on the dry side, or if you're someone who likes a lot of coverage, I would say skip on this, because if you're dry, it's going to emphasize your dry patches. If you are someone who likes a lot of coverage, 16 shades isn't going to be enough to give you a medium to full coverage of a perfect skin tone match, which is something that you're gonna wanna look for in a foundation. I would say it's 50-50. It's a good foundation, It's not the best, kind of like the Jane Iredale I reviewed last week. It's a good foundation. It's just good. There's room for improvement. It's not groundbreaking. It's not something I would say run out and buy. It's just good. There's pros, there's cons, but when we're looking at the scope of foundations that are on the market, there's things I like a little bit more. And the things I like more are gonna be the things I recommend. If you found today's powder foundation review helpful, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share this video with a friend that you think might enjoy it. I hope you all are taking care and doing well, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, y'all.